Cloudy skies with some light rain falling out across the area. That's what's going on presently. We'll talk about what you can expect tonight coming up.
The grades are in. An anti-gun group puts Missouri's gun laws to the test.
Waiting for justice, an assault victim anxious for police action says he's hopeful it will come soon.
The cuts get deeper. Future funding for higher education does not look good. KOMU 8 News at 6 starts now.
From Studio 8A, coverage you can count on in high definition. This is KOMU 8 News at 6.
Things are not looking good for the future of higher education. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jem Reek.
And I'm Angie Bailey. Thanks for joining us in a story we've followed since the state announced massive funding cuts. State college budgets could soon be on the chopping block. KOMU 8's Chad Mira joins us live with a pretty bleak outlook. So, Chad, how deep are these cuts going to be?
Angie, I spoke to the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Higher Education today, and he says we can expect cuts in the range of 15 to 20% in 2012. To put that into perspective, that's about 3 times as much as the cuts in 2011. It hasn't happened yet because Governor Nixon promised to keep the funding cuts at around 5% in light of the statewide tuition freeze. Now, some of the things schools might do differently are fewer repairs, making classes larger, and striving to be more energy efficient. Wagner says that they're hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst.
You know, there's always the possibility there might be another federal stimulus package that might help us out. Maybe the economy is just going to go bananas and grow wonderfully, and that would help us out.
Wagner says they've already trimmed a lot, so avoiding cuts to the classroom might not be avoided. The governor's office says everything else is pretty much still up in the air. Reporting live in Columbia, Chad Mira, KOMU 8 News.
Well, the radar is showing plenty of light rain falling out across the area. However, not a whole lot of this is actually making its way on down to the surface. Here's a look at live Doppler 8 First Alert radar. Now, some of this, especially where those yellow colors are, may be picking up on a little light precipitation. Other than that, this moves through the area overnight tonight, and we're just left with a mostly cloudy sky. A fairly chilly start to your Saturday morning. We'll be back into the upper 20s, but still some more precipitation on the way to close out the weekend. We'll talk about that coming up.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
4 out of 100, an anti-gun group gave Missouri's gun laws a big fat F, but gun rights proponents say the laws are just fine. KOMU 8's Ryan Takeo has both sides of the debate.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Gun owner Mike Cernuto
I bought an AR-15 today.
Passed the FBI's test. He wanted to pull the trigger on the purchase Saturday, but because of a background check, he had to wait.
It's our responsibility to keep this record for 20 years.
And manager Barry McKenzie says every sale needs a check.
We call in the FBI, and they give us a instant reply.
But the Brady Coalition says the state fails in 4 categories: stopping firearm trafficking, strengthening background checks, adding child safety, and banning military-style weapons. Weapons like the rifles Cernuto bought. The report says the state earned points because employers and colleges don't have to allow guns.
I feel good that there's not concealed weapons allowed on campus. I don't really feel in danger of guns or anything either way.
Cernuto's hobby as a marksman won't pass. In fact, it's growing.
It's worth it, 100%.
Even though the Brady Coalition's report gave the state a failing grade. Ryan Takeo, KOMU 8 News, Columbia.
When you really clean it.
We tried to contact the Brady Coalition in Washington, D.C., but they did not return our call. For a link to its report, visit our website, KOMU.com.
An update tonight from Moberly about an assault we first told you about back in September. KOMU 8's Adriana Amato has the story of a man who says he may finally see some justice, but 5 months later.
I was placed in the hospital for a facial fracture, eye fracture, and then transported to Columbia, and then was treated from there.
On September 24th, jailed Frank and his girlfriend Kathy Howell walked along 5th Street in Moberly. Frank says that's when 2 men separated the pair and seriously injured Frank. Both Frank and Howell made phone calls to the police that night. Police didn't arrest anyone.
I personally feel that it taken a long time, but I understand also that they had to receive medical records from all the hospitals.
Once the call is received, we send officers. They do an on-scene investigation, conduct interviews with those people involved.
Police have a warrant for one of the suspects' arrest, but haven't found him yet.
Well, obviously, we've been waiting for justice to be done, which did not happen immediately. And to be assaulted by someone that you see walking up and down the streets, making people think that they're legitimate business people every day when they're not, that's pretty frightening too.
Police hope that people won't question their safety downtown. Adriana Amato, KOMU 8 News, Moberly.
Moberly police did say they are continuing to look for the suspect.
3 years ago, a Columbia ordinance asked smokers to take their cigarettes outside, but there's always an exception to the rule, as KOMU 8's Mark Kelly reports. That exception opened its doors today.
You smoke it, light it, and it has a flavor.
Oh, that tastes so good. It's so smooth.
But it's not a cigarette.
I'm sure you know what a water bomb is. I mean, that's basically what this is, but they're called hookahs.
And today, a store all about hookah opened in a city that bans smoking.
Get this out of the way.
Designated as a tobacco retailer, 9th Street Hookah is just one exception to the city's smoking ban, which targets bars and restaurants. One bar manager says he doesn't feel burned by the discrepancy.
If it's a tobacco shop, though, and it's solely a tobacco shop, then I have no problem with it.
They're coming in to smoke. You know, that's the business, and they know what they're getting into. So.
Limited to those that want to go in behind the closed door and do the cigarette. I don't really have a problem with that.
And neither does the city. Mark Kelly, KOMU 8 News, Columbia.
Tobacco retailers aren't the only exemption to the smoking ordinance. You can see that ordinance at our website, KOMU.com.
Reporters here at KOMU are always looking for stories to cover, but how do you decide what's newsworthy and what's not? In this week's Your View, KOMU 8's Sarah Hill shows us a type of story that KOMU does not cover.
Welcome to Your View. Last week, a KOMU viewer called in wondering if KOMU would be covering a protest and counter-protest in downtown Columbia. The Westboro Baptist Church of Topeka, Kansas, picketed a Heartland Men's Chorus concert outside of the Missouri Theater on 9th Street. According to its website, Heartland's Men's Chorus is made up of gay or gay-sensitive performers. KOMU did not cover the Westboro protest or the counter-protest.
The last two times that they've been in town, the counter-protest has been just about as minor and minuscule as the original protest.
KOMU has covered Westboro demonstrations before. In February of last year, one of our reporters covered a military funeral Westboro was picketing. In October of 2009, another reporter covered a Westboro demonstration at Stevens College.
Someone coming and doing the exact same thing, delivering the exact same message in different places around your viewing area, isn't necessarily newsworthy every time they do it.
So how do we decide when enough is enough?
Maybe at the point when you realize that you're being played, that the only reason for the behavior that's being exhibited is the camera.
So what do you think? Should KOMU have covered the protest and counter-protest? Log on to KOMU.com and click on the Your View tab. You can also call us on the Your View comment line at 573-884-NEWS. Then watch Friday nights at 6 as we report your view of the news.
Not a whole lot of guarantees in life, too. They say death and, of course, taxes.
Well, we've got tax tips and an 8 on your money report a little later.
Round 1 of the precipitation completes its course later on this evening, but we are due for round 2 by Sunday. I'll detail your full forecast coming up next on KOMU 8 News at 6, coverage you can count on.